Okay, let me bring
We
that
are
up.
recording another presentation, another book presentation from Sharon Munyaka, this time Sharon from South Africa, presenting a book that sometimes is very, let's say, insightful, practical, but also very much connected to coaching. So I'm eager to hear what you want to share about the experience that you received by reading this book and putting the book in connection with coaching. The space is all yours, Sharon.
Thank you very much, Christina, and a very good afternoon to everyone on the call. So, I will start off with why this book, and it's been clarified for me as I've continued to work, with this book review and the conversations I've had with Christina. So, I come into this Sunlight family as someone established in my career, as someone who's been coaching for many years. And the metaphor I can best describe what it's been like. You know, when you learned how to drive on a farm and then you get into the city and you have to learn how to follow the road rules. So there's a manual, you need to go through the manual, you need to go through the rules, and you need to kind of forget some of those, or not even forget, unlearn some of those habits that are not helpful if you are going to follow the road rules. So, incoming at this point in my career and my journey and saying, I want to credential. I want to follow this credentialing journey, but what is it going to take? So maybe let me start off with just getting a few insights from you. When you hear the word habit, what comes to mind? And I'll just get one or two voices. When you hear the word habit, what comes to mind?
Something you do without having to think about doing it.
Yep, absolutely. Anyone else? What is the word that comes up for you? Or
It's
what
doing
thoughts come up?
it's doing things always in the same way.
Just say that again, Giselle.
Just doing things are the same way, always, not changing.
Yeah, not changing. So you're not thinking about it, you're just doing things automatically. So we are exploring the power of habit and why we
Sharon,
do.
sorry to interrupt. We have also some notes in the chat. I will read it for you. Something that we do regularly and don't think about it. It's kind of a ritual with it and Lydia subconscious repetitive action.
Absolutely. So thank you for those insights. I think we all kind of have a base of what habits are. And when we think about our coaching journey, it's not a therapeutic process. It's a very different journey that we're embarking on with our clients. But as much as our clients are going on this transformative journey, we too are needing to pay attention to notice what are those habits that best support our coaching journey, noticing what are those things that get in the way of being able to coach, effectively. So when I think about the coaching journey, I'm thinking about, how I partner with a client, and you would remember in competency three, where there's establishment and maintaining of agreement. So the client knows what they want to do. So when they come in and they've chosen to partner with you, they're saying, this is an area that's really valuable for me. And as we weave through the different competencies, I'm going to need to listen actively. I'm going to need to create that space where, there's trust. And I'm able to have that coaching conversation where the client is able to provide their reality. And I can say, oh, I'm noticing this. Does this resonate? Is this something that is true for you? Because it's not my journey. And the power of habits is that it can really support a client to transform the journey that they are on, but it requires us to notice because a lot of you spoke about how automatic it is. So you're not even thinking about it. It's something that just happens, right? So the coaching partnership then is that opportunity to walk with the client as they explore what matters most to them. And for me as a coach, I believe in the potential of my client. And so I really want to journey with them as they start to understand which habits support and which habits are not effective for them. So, to really help us understand a little bit more around this habit loop, so the book explains clearly this cue. There's something that triggers in your brain to say, I need to start this routine. So I walk every morning. Before my fracture that happened 3 weeks ago, I would walk every morning, and seeing my running shoes and my training gear is that cue that says, okay, get up. And there's that routine. And what it does is there's a reward. So the reward for me would come in just my energy levels. The reward would come with what I discover on the path. The reward would also come in terms of just how my whole energy and my whole being has shifted. So when we partner with coaching clients, often change is really difficult. And if I take you back to my initial example that I gave about the habits that I had in my own coaching journey, I had to persist with the journey. So, for example, learning new ways of being, looking at the ICF competencies as a container through which I could be able to coach. So, for example, taking enough time with competency 3, where I'm saying, if I'm really paying attention to what the client wants to do, it stops being my journey. I don't have to do a lot of the heavy lifting. I am listening. And sometimes the client will come and say, I don't know. And I engage them. If you knew, what would you know? I'm also bringing in other points of intelligences like their body language. What am I noticing? So in that moment, it's really around shifting, those small shifts that result in a big change. So if you are partnering with a client for at least 6 sessions, there might be things that you're going to notice. It could be when you get to the competency 8, where you want to facilitate client growth and you're getting into accountability. So that's a place where I often trip up. So the conversation is going, and I want them to design the accountability measures, and then they want to get back into the story. So it's also helping to surface how the client starts behaving in a particular way and is evoking that awareness to say, oh, I notice when we start talking about putting, clear measures, the conversation starts shifting into, oh, but you know how hard it is, you know how terrible things are at work. And I really want to support them in that lasting change in terms of their habit. So in this book, I learned that the cue and the routine and the reward are going to be the same process. What needs to change? Sometimes it's small shifts, and it's the routine that you've got to look at differently. So for example, if someone is saying, I notice at about 3 p.m. during my workday, and maybe their coaching conversation is around weight loss. I notice at 3 p.m. I start snacking. I like cookies. I like chocolate. My job is not to say, well, that's not good. You are such an unhealthy person. But really, it's to make visible what else will be happening in that moment. Asking questions that help them to start understanding their own patterns. So, for example, it could be when the work becomes labor intensive or it's admin focused, they get bored. So, if they get bored, what is the awareness? They're like, so what else is possible? What is available? What are you learning as you work through this situation? What are you noticing about yourself? As you notice, so maybe they've kept a journal, maybe they're committed to tracking what their behaviors are throughout that process. So it's not about us getting into a therapeutic zone, but really evoking that awareness so the client is able to notice, oh, this is what I do. Why do I do what I do? And where are the points where I could possibly shift? So our job within the coaching journey is to really partner with clients to clarify the goal. And in clarifying the goal, it's what really matters. And so with every session, you would remember that you have the person in the room. That's what you have to work with. What's going on the outside, although helpful, what you can only manage is the person in front of you. So I ask my clients, what would be of most value today? And I help them to notice the different things that get in the way of helping them progress. So, for example, if it's now session number 5, but we're following a particular pattern, we're following a particular process when we deal with certain issues, my job is to just hold up the mirror and support them in that. And so the goal for each of the session is within the control of my client because they know what they want to work on, and that is not my job. So, what is the power of coaching, right? So, coaching becomes a pathway to effective habits. I'm a psychologist, so there's always the seduction of the dual role. But I've had to learn to clarify in my mind, what is my role here? What have I partnered with the client to do? And in doing that, it's to find the areas that the client wants to work with. And so we partner so that we clarify the goals and we establish what it is they want to achieve and the situation that they're bringing in that particular situation. And so asking incisive questions, the intentional pause, not rushing the client, because there are moments where we just pause and I say, what are you noticing in yourself? And some of my clients are not really familiar with what's going on in their body. So I offer an observation. Like I noticed when you were saying this, your shoulders were slumped in. Did you notice that? They're like, oh, yeah, actually, I noticed that. And how does that feel? And so through coaching, I'm able to walk this journey with my client as they start to identify what are my patterns? What are those things that I would like to focus on? Where would I like to make the shifts that would support me to be effective in my work, in my personal life, and in the things that have brought me to partner with you as a coach? So another important area that came up in the book is around belief and identity. And if you look at that image, it reminds me of other images, of the cat, the kitten, and the lion. So what I believe in myself and how I identify sometimes are not the same thing. So real change happens when the clients shift their self-belief and their identity. And so we are helping them in our coaching journey to move from I'm trying to, or I am someone who is doing this. So the clarity becomes essential for us to be able to say, what is it that you want to work on? What matters for you? It's not about me as the coach, because they might hold certain perceptions. They might have certain emotional attachments to words. So my interpretation is not as important. It's to understand from the client. So when you say, I am this, what does that mean for you? If your joy could give you a message, what could joy say to you? So it's really listening in and being fully present as the client gives us the information. So the coaching conversation provides us this opportunity where we explore. And I cannot say this enough because it's something that I've had to learn over time, that it's really about what the client wants to achieve, where they are in that particular moment. And sometimes the shift is so subtle. And it's not about me saying, oh, I expected this massive shift, like, can't you see? But really just being patient and saying, okay, this is where they need to go. This is how they want to go. This is what they want to be able to deal with and in that moment. And so it's really helping them understand the habits that support them and, to mirror back what they need to be considering in their journey. And it's also around the learning. So the learning for me has come up quite strongly when it ties into accountability. because we talk about the learning, but the client also needs to bring it. So how do I measure that I'm making progress? How do I measure that this cycle that I typically follow is supporting me to go in that particular direction? So our role in the coaching partnership is really supporting clients in how they think, in how they feel, and how they act. And habits interplay in all of those areas. And the client is there with us to say, actually, it's a mindset thing, or maybe it's a process thing, but we are there maintaining presence and just supporting the client as they figure that out and find those insights and areas of learning. So I have used up a lot of words and would like to bring it back to you. If you just take a minute to think about your own habits, what habits have you developed to support your coaching practice? And just really try and think about, yeah, which habits have you developed over time that have supported your coaching practice? And I'll stop share for a second so I can see the screen.
Thank you, Sharon, for the opportunity to reflect on that. Giselle, please.
Yes,
So,
Giselle.
hi, Sharon. So something that we developed, like we are quite new in training, but is to follow the our competence. So especially at the beginning, sometimes I feel quite repetitive myself, saying hello, would like to explore today. Some questions sometimes become quite a habit that I try to avoid, but yeah, you develop this way of structuring your session. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. So that container that you've created for yourself. So it's a habit that kind of helps you just follow, like, this is what I do first. And then I go there and I see how the client responds in each of those processes. Thank you very much, Giselle. Others? I see Eva here. I prolonged my exhale, which helps me to be more present, more in being. And it just invited me to also just Vit, do you want to unmute and share a little bit about your alter ego?
Yeah, it's interesting when I talk to friends, to my family. I act like normally. I judge sometimes, Really not a perfect guy. But when I'm coaching, it's really like a switch in my brain. I think, partially it contributed to what contributed to this was that I was also in the NLP training and I did a circle of excellence, and I use it for this creation of this alter ego. And from this moment, I started to use it, and now I have it already embedded in my way. When I sit, take a notepad and pen and client is coming, I'm switching my way I'm relating to these people. This is really like alter ego. Um,
Mm. Amazing. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And what I'm liking is that we all have different modalities that we tap into to help support the habits that really support, our coaching journey. For me, earlier I spoke about the walking every morning. It's a habit that I've embedded because it supports me at a mind, heart, and just my whole being is present because there's something that's like a cue that says, if you're going to be ready to be present, you got to feel everything. It can't just be at a head level. I've got to notice what's going on in my body. It's habits like getting up after each session, creating a little bit of space in between, just, going outside, grabbing some water. So finding those processes that support you. Anyone else before I get back to my slides who would like to share? Okay. So I notice we have a minute. Michael, is that you coming to unmute or you're just shuffling? Okay.
Michael? No?
No.
But it
Okay.
would be nice to contribute. So I invite all the coaches, and Michael is always a little bit shy or apart. So the question is, which habits have you developed to support your coaching practice or to support you as a coach? Okay, then you can reflect and maybe also share more after our session or after our call. Sharon.
Thank you. And I was just thinking about, how it's unconscious. And so you do it, but you probably don't even notice that you're doing it because it's so embedded into who you are and how you do things. So it's very automatic. So some of those habits might not be clear, but maybe an exercise for yourself to just notice, like, what do I do that supports my coaching practice? What are those habits that I've developed over time? So, colleagues, as a way of closing up the conversation, this is more of just an encouragement that I got from the book that, coaching is like change. It's a journey, right? And change might not be fast. And it isn't always easy. But with time and effort, almost any habit can be reshaped. And taking my own coaching learning journey, I am noticing that who I was earlier in the year to who I am now has really shifted. And it has been possible through time and effort. And some of the habits that were serving me and are no longer helpful now have shifted to support me to be a more present and available coach to my clients. So thank you very much, everybody. And thank you, Christina, for this opportunity.
Thank you for offering this work of yours, Sharon. It has been a journey also to go through what you share with us. And I, want to invite everybody. Let's just take a moment to honor the dedication of those who have shared their work today, Sharon and Eva, the coaches who have contributed here, and all of you who have participated. Your work, Sharon, your work, your presence and effort, they are never to be taken for granted. Together, we create a collective growth as coaches, and the inspiration that make our community truly extraordinary comes from the work of each of you. So thank you for sharing your personal journey. Actually, in our community, we discovered the power of working together, and every voice adds value. So thank you so much for what you have brought today to us.
Thank you, Christina.